Okay, should have a notification there that we're recording this session, and I'd like to welcome everyone again to this webinar titled Food and Ag Export Resource Webinar. And excited to have a great speaker today and talk a little bit more about food and ag export. It's not a topic that we see a lot in business development in my world and working with small businesses. I am the region director for the Small Business Development Center at South Carolina State University, and we cover through my office, we cover a very rural area of South Carolina, the Midlands and the Low Country, and we work a lot in agriculture, food, those type things. And interestingly, food and ag is probably one of the top exports in the state of South Carolina, especially, commodity agriculture such as grain, cotton, things like that, timber. These are very popular and go out of the state very readily. But there's other aspects of export that I think folks in small business can interact with more. The commodity type stuff, even the farmers don't really deal with export. They're just selling it at the grain elevator. And then, a broker comes along and, deals with those folks. So it's not a lot of hands-on probably for commodity ag for the farmer or for the small business. Where I think there are opportunities for those are in specialty food products and value added food products, which small farmers can get into, and medium size, any size farm that adds value to their crop or their product and is able to have a good branded and successfully run operation around selling that value added product. There are opportunities that they could export, especially to places like Canada as a starter, the Caribbean, folks right around us, and maybe eventually even, overseas. The volume of those transactions may not be high, but the markets could be very good. And so in putting together this webinar, what I wanted to really express and get across to the folks that are on this webinar and looking to learn a little bit more about export is some of the resources that are out there. There's some great resources in all areas, from funding to marketing to understanding how you might plan to export your product. And so we're going to have a great overview today of some of those resources. And I've asked Beth Smith, who is an associate of mine in the SBDC. She works out of the University of South Carolina State Office up in the Columbia area, and she is an export specialist. So she spends the majority of her time getting to know all the resources and the resource partners and those individuals who do work in international trade and export, and so that she can better serve the clients of the Small Business Development Center and folks who are interested in doing a little bit more in international trade. So very glad to have Beth here with us. And we are going to, at this point, I think I'm gonna hand it over to you, Beth. I'll let you share your screen and take over.
All righty, let me see. Let's make sure I can do that. There we go. Hello, let's see. It looks pretty creepy in here. There we go. Let me get here and looking for there it is. Now can everybody see the screen? I hope.
Yes.
Jim, is it okay? All righty. So, and I've now learned how to forward these things. Export is a great opportunity for small business, and these dot points really are important. 95% of the world's consumers live outside of the US, and exporters tend to grow their companies faster than non-exporters. We often find new markets for products that we have when where we are currently selling them isn't maybe working. And so it may be in agriculture that we're selling within the state or to the next couple of states around, but there can be shifts in pricing that enable us to ship them further away, and they are actually more beneficial. This number, 75.4% of the firms exporting to Canada, and then we have 72.7% of the firms export to Mexico. Those are small to medium-sized companies. These are not our large corporations. Large corporations can distribute anywhere on the planet, but we have plenty of small and medium-sized companies working with our two neighbors. I'm also watching so far this year, because of the logistics and supply chain bottlenecks. There's been a lot more interest in looking at the Caribbean area, Central America, and also the northern part of South America. So these numbers could change in the next year or two as we start to expand, I'm going to say more regionally, here in the Americas side of the planet. Our exports to Canada and Mexico have quadrupled. A lot of that is because of what was NAFTA, but which is now USMCA. We certainly have partnered up with our two neighbors, and it is showing great rewards for all three countries. And yes, US goods are generally very well thought of and thought of as high quality. So it usually does give us an edge over competitors. The next few slides I have are about it's 2021 end of year data to try to help us get a handle on how South Carolina looks in the export world. I thought you'd find that pretty interesting. We're number one of all 50 states in the export sales of passenger vehicles and tires. You know, we have all those tire companies, you know, Bridgestone, Michelin, et cetera, and BMW sure does export a lot of vehicles. So we have those folks to thank. We are 17th among the 50 states just in general export volume. We did 29.7 billion in 2021. Look at us, we're almost 20% of the passenger vehicles that are exported from the US. They come from South Carolina. That's a whopping number. And then if you look at our country's tire exports, 36% or so are from South Carolina. So the manufacturers in the upstate are helping us with a lot of that export volume. 5 leading industries in South Carolina for export. Agriculture is number one. And when I talk with the SBA and I ask where the export financing money is going, the bulk of it goes to agricultural concerns. That is followed by aerospace, Boeing, automotive, pretty much BMW, and it's Volvo and Mercedes. Advanced manufacturing, if you don't know what that means in the state of South Carolina, that's actually the rebuilt version of our textile industry. We learned how to morph that industry into advanced materials, and Milliken does most of the research for that. Our Under Armour, for instance, is what could I call that? It's a fiber that comes from the research that Milliken did and then found partners to launch it. And of course, tourism, and that's Myrtle Beach. Here were our exports in South Carolina last year. I thought you'd find them kind of interesting to look at these. Vehicles and parts, again, being first. And by the way, this is non-agriculture and forestry. Let me make sure you understand this slide. Nuclear parts, you know, the nuclear engineers were pretty much centralized in Charlotte. And then in manufacturing, we actually build a lot of the components for the traditional nuclear generators that have been around the planet for years. We were going to do more work in small modular reactors, but That has never really been endorsed as a strategy by DOE, US DOE. So we still do nuclear parts, but not necessarily for the small modular reactors. Rubber and plastics. I can remember when we didn't recycle plastics in this state, and we actually used to have to put the plastic in the backs of trucks and haul them up to just outside of Chicago to have it reduced into a liquid. And now we do it here. Electrical machinery, aircraft, medical equipment, which a lot of folks don't understand that we do here, organic chemicals, and then miscellaneous chemicals and pulp. So those are our leading commodity exports. And I'm going non-agricultural for the state. The agribusiness sector, which is both commissions for agriculture and for forestry, is still the state's #1 industry. And you can see from the statistics, it has an enormous annual economic impact on the state of South Carolina. A lot of jobs, a lot of farms, smaller farms, and 4.7 million acres of farmland. This is an interesting slide because it shows us how land use has changed over the years. And the green is forest land, if you can see it. Agriculture, do you see that sort of flesh colored? You know, it's kind of agriculture coming down, right? And then developments going up. That's not a surprise to us. And Jimmy knows my heart is in ensuring that the land stays land. I'm not crazy about all the subdivisions that are all the box houses going in on the farms. So I'm just saying I am that girl, but you can see the impact that that development has had on the land, probably that was used agriculturally in the past, because the forest land is similar in its use over time. That's from 1936 to 29. So that's 80 years worth of a view. It's kind of interesting. So it makes our farms, to me, very precious. These are the agricultural commodities. And again, not a surprise, the broilers and turkeys coming in quite high in the amount of money that is exported, followed by, and then I missed the cattle, but corn, soybeans, cotton, peanuts, tobacco, still in there, still in the mix. The Forestry Commission also has looked at a change recently in the mix of the way wood is being, what's a good word? Not produced, but modified is maybe a good word. How the wood is modified for use, and especially in export. You'll notice the blue at the bottom is pulp. And you saw that that is still a strong commodity for the state of South Carolina. Saw logs, interesting. We've had some issues with mills with the size of the saw blades. Veneer logs, you see a smaller composite panel. Look at this. It's just growing here in these last, like, say, 12 years. Post and pilings, but look at bioenergy in the green. You know, we have plenty of folks, Jimmy, I think you and I have a client or more in that field. And that's where we're able to take byproducts and create fuel out of those. So that's kind of how we look at wood in the state of South Carolina. When you look at agricultural and non-agricultural exports, combine those, these are our 10 top export markets. China and Germany, and Canada, Mexico at the top. But China and Germany, you see the amount, the volume that is shipped to those two countries. It's also interesting to me, if I had done an import chart, I think China and Germany would have been at the top also. So there's just a lot of mutual trade between the state of South Carolina, China, and Germany. And then you heard me say Canada and Mexico also. And then there's the others. By the way, this conference I'm running this week on, it's international, the head economic forecaster that we listened to yesterday identified India as one of our next biggest markets for the US. And so it looks like it's down the list there now. But as the geopolitical events are occurring, some of our trade partners may shift. And so you may take a look at India also. By region, you'll notice that the bulk of our exports really do come from the upstate. And that's because of the advanced manufacturing abilities, the robotics, everything else we have up there on I-85. And the Midlands comes in second, and third would be the Low Country, and then the PD area. So in case you wonder where the goods come from that are exported, that'll help you get a handle on that. What the South Carolina SBDC is doing with its maybe 3 export specialists is we're trying to work with either new to export clients, early stage exporters, even existing ones, or clients who are importing. Now, our job under export for the SBA is to assist in export, but I am finding the more I'm in this work that we have a lot of products that are imported. We then bring value to those products, at least 51% US, and then we export them. So sometimes we have to import some of the components or the basis for a product that we're actually making here in the state that we then export. So the longer I'm in this, the more I realize, well, it's kind of a two-edged sword. So this is who we're trying to assist. And we can do that either because you just generally know who to call. You can call your own region director, SBDC consultant in your area. They know the 3 of us who are trying to specialize in this, and they'll get you over to us and we will help you to the best of our ability. The 3 that are CGBPs, which is the credential that you really need to be an international, are myself, Ben Smith in the upstate, and Tom Laria in Charleston. This is what we do. And this is taken again, it's Beth reflecting on where do I see clients needing assistance? Where do they usually ask me questions? First is if they're actually, from a management perspective, ready to even export. It won't surprise you that there's technology you're going to need. There's a better understanding of tariffs, trades. The best thing I probably learned in my life on international is there is no such thing as a free trade zone. It's just a favorable trade zone. And so we sometimes think that the price of our products will fare well in another market, but it takes some research for us to figure that out. And so I usually can spend the first couple of hours with somebody, honestly, doing live wire research on their product, where they think they want it to go. We can look at those trade statistics and see whether or not it really is going to be an advantage for you or not. And so I might spend a little more time on that than you would think. But then we offer training. We have webinars that we have put together the last few years and this year, especially with our partners throughout the state of South Carolina, who help us with these 4 areas. It's either the management of the business internationally, what kind of model are you going to use? How do you need to be set up legally? Do you have to register your products in those countries? If so, are you going to do it? Is an agent going to do it? There's a lot of the legal stuff that we do in that first topical area. The marketing, the branding, the packaging. Some of the countries require bilingual packaging. We're finding that out with Canada and the province of Quebec. It has to be in French. So, and it is a country, it's a regional law. So sometimes we just have to translate things on websites and in packaging and in brand and in our brands so that they work well on other countries. The trade finance is, and maybe Jimmy's going to talk a little bit about this more, but we work with the SBA on their export finance programs. They have 3, and then they have a program for import. And then last but not least, which has been the conundrum this year, has been everything supply chain, working with freight forwarders on logistics, clogged ports, backed up rail yards and trucks. I mean, it's been a nightmare. So we work with our business owners on any of those areas. I help put the export business plans together with the clients. It is one of the documents that you will need to work with the U.S. Commercial Service for in-country contacts, or with the South Carolina Department of Commerce, should you be interested in grant funds that are available to help you. And the third place you're going to need that export plan is when you go to get financing. So that leads me into the next one, which is, what are the documents that you need either for the SBA or for the EXIM Bank in order to obtain a loan? And I help you with that documentation. The fifth service that we offer is the connection to SC Commerce, U.S. Commercial Service, and everyone else that we work with in the state. So, which is, there are export specialists at the Department of Agriculture and also at Forestry. So if we know that's where you're headed, I automatically help build the team around you that will assist you in your export work. Again, these are our trade consultants. The only one I didn't mention before was Jim Funk. He is currently trying to assist us in the Rock Hill area. And then I have a pretty little picture of where we all are located. The outcomes from the SBDC. What is it that we're hoping to be able to do with this? And we would love to be able to see business owners increase their sales revenue, create jobs, retain jobs, maybe even be able to utilize an SBA loan. And then for us internally, we always look at the number of businesses we've tried to help in a year, the kind of time we spend with them, and the training that we have provided. So I'm just being upfront about how we measure our own internal success. If you think you are a candidate for export support, or if you know of someone that you think might be a candidate, here's a way to think about that. I have found that businesses that have a seasonal business here and are looking for ways to extend the sales life, shelf life of their products. And that could be, in your case, in agriculture, it'd be the rotation of the crops, you know, what sells in spring or summer or the fall. Different markets for different seasonal products. And so export can be a really nice way to extend not your growing season, but the products that come from a extension of what you create. Sometimes we have a slowdown, and we've seen that with COVID. I call it the rotating blackout. As a result of that, we've had to shift where we have traditionally sold things that we make. The third one is sometimes we have products that are not competing well domestically because there's too many other folks in the same line of work. And by finding foreign buyers who need what we have, we can actually increase our sales there. I truly, in number 4, during COVID, I sure had clients that had inventory that didn't sell. You may remember we all sat home for at least 3 or 4 weeks, and then it took a while before we were able to get back out of our houses, neighborhoods, farms, and go back a little bit to the way life had been. Well, that created a huge hiccup for folks. And in the case of perishables, if the inventory didn't sell, we were scrambling trying to find markets where it could sell while it still wasn't yet expired. Another thing I have learned is that when folks have family members in foreign countries who are willing to help move the product into that country, we seem to do pretty well here in South Carolina. And we have plenty of, and I will say a lot of Hispanics with family members, here we go, with the Caribbean, Cuba, Dominican Republic, the islands, Central and Northern South America. So there may be opportunity for someone to export goods that we have here through their family members to markets that are not too far away. And this last one, I have also been contacted in agriculture and in forestry by individuals who are interested in selling. And if that is an issue, both Jimmy and I know where to go to help you value your business and figure out ways to exit it. And sometimes having a diverse market makes your business far more attractive to a buyer. The export partners that we work with in the state and also at the federal level, we do belong to the SCITC, that's the International Trade Coalition. And the members of that coalition are SC Commerce. The folks are actually the agency based, as you know, out of Columbia, US Commercial Service, and they offer, I talked about commerce, they offer the STEP program. US Commercial Service will help exporters identify buyers in foreign countries. And they either do it through the International Buyers Program, which is usually a trade mission. And if you look at US Commercial Service, their website, they have a list of all the trade missions that are going on this year. And you can become one of the members of those trade missions. If you would let me or Jimmy know that you're interested, I will make sure you're connected to them so that you can participate. The Gold Key service is something you pay for, and it's where the in-country US Commercial Service personnel will find 3 to 5 partners, distributors, dealers, resellers, buyers, but by whatever name. They will find them for you. They connect you right now virtually on a Zoom meeting with those folks to see if there's possibility to do business together. And you actually pay for that service, and it varies, about $900 to $1,200 depending. But you pay for that because it's a one-off. You're not part of a group like you are in a trade mission, where they may have 8 or 10 businesses trying to find more opportunity in another country. In the Gold Key service, it's Gold Key because they're only doing this work just specially for you. And I think there may be some trade shows that start showing up late this year or into next year. But so far this year, we really haven't seen very many of those. A USEAC, which is a U.S. Export Assistance Center, typically helps us connect to EXIM. EXIM Bank usually does loans for owners that are 5 million or more, and the SBA is capped at 5 million. So that's kind of how I know which group to work through, depending on how much money you need to grow your operation. As I've said, we work with the South Carolina Department of Agriculture and Forestry, as well as with the State Ports Authority. Commercial service can help you with market research. I've talked about trade shows, Gold Key, and when they decide that you're part of one of those trade missions, they put on specific webinars that they believe the clients will need to have mastered before they actually engage with businesses in the country that you've chosen to explore. And that's where they are advocates for you. Those are in-country individuals who are asked as part of their employment for the U.S. Commercial Service. They are typically divided by industry, and that's their job, is to know everything that's going on in the industry. And when a U.S. business wants to come into their country where they're employed, their job is to connect them with all the people that will be helpful. And they act as guides for us. In my former life, when I did run the Center for Market Development for, one of the companies that was #1 in the world when I was there, my work was to move. We had 17,000 patents. My job was to oversee which of the products went into which country, what the timing of it was, what those product certifications had to be. And in my global travel, bouncing around time zones from one country to another to make sure we were distributing our products correctly, I learned that those U.S. Commercial Service in-country people were incredible. They are housed at the U.S. Embassy facilities. And so sometimes politically, I had to work through other embassy officials. But when it came to my meetings with buyers or distributors or dealers, I always let that in-country person know that I was arriving, I was having meetings, and I told them when I was leaving for 2 reasons. One, because I'm a girl, and I knew better than to fly somewhere and never get a return trip back. But the second one was they could also assist me in those meetings and make sure I actually was meeting with a decision maker. And so I can personally testify to having used the in-country U.S. Commercial Service people extensively. They were great. And then we have the STEP program. There is money in the STEP program for business owners to use, and it's grant money. It's not a loan. It is typically used, and I'm just going to talk for a minute about this. It's typically used for website translations or materials that have to be translated. Lately, we have been finding that you may have a website that operates out of the US, but you're going to need a mirror website in country, because that's where the consumers in that country tend to look for what it is that they want to buy. They don't always use worldwide platforms. They tend, not just the US, a lot of people in a lot of countries like to buy, I'm going to say locally or regionally. And so we have found that we have to have a mirror website, mirror social media as well. And so some of these funds can be used to find those people that will help you with your marketing strategy and tactics in country. That's how we use the money right now. SUSTA. SUSTA stands for the Southern United States Trade Association. And the thing that I think SUSTA is known the most for is its MAP program. It's funded by the USDA's Foreign Agricultural Service. It is designed to assist our smaller businesses in promoting their U.S. food or agricultural products to foreign buyers. You'll notice that they have a global events program. So SUSTA hosts events. And then you'll see this through the 50% cost share program. SUSTA can reimburse eligible companies. Sorry, didn't mean to do that. Moving this, 50% of approved international marketing expense. So because of the industry interest that you have, this can be another resource for you, and especially one for funding. I haven't said this yet. I own a timber farm, and I do work closely with the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the South Carolina Department of Agriculture on cost share programs. And so I am familiar with how beneficial those can be. And maybe you already knew about those. Another partner that we have in the state is USC. It is the Moore School of Business. There is a professor there, Professor Wolfgang Messner, who teaches a semester course in the fall each year. Jimmy, I think you've been sending some clients there, as have I. But we can have a few clients work with the students, and the students are divided into teams. Those students will work on they'll do marketing research for you, and they can put together a marketing strategy by channel for you, as well as specific tactics that they think will help you move your product to market. If that's something you're interested in, could you please let me and or Jimmy know, and we will have you complete a very short company profile, which we send to Professor Messner. And then what he does is he uses your description of what your company does to marry you up with students who have a background that will be helpful in the crafting of your market strategy. It's really well done. And I know I have participated in that since 2008. So a lot of clients will tell you very, very good things about that program. And again, it's done free of charge for you. So it's a good program. In general, the SBDC has some resources on its site. The SBA has video tutorials on its site for export, as does trade.gov, which is the same as ITA, the International Trade Association. So there are videos in these 3 resources. And then, of course, you now have the contact information for myself, Tom, Ben, and Jim. And then with that, I will stop, Jimmy. I've probably, I hope I didn't put people to sleep with all that. That's a lot of information to cover.
No, I think that was a very good overview of information. Both services that SBDC provides and also other resources that are available to folks in South Carolina in regards to export and possibly import, as you suggested.
Mm-hmm. Sounds fun.
And I think a lot of what you described and talked about can be applied to the food industry, especially those specialty food products. With a company that's maybe more well-established, has a brand, has some strong sales, and is interested in, other markets, and maybe they have markets that might be interested in what they have available. For instance, I have one client who works with rice. It's called Carolina Gold. And there are some Caribbean countries that are big into rice. And actually Japan is very, as you could imagine, is interested in rice. But the uniqueness of this particular product interests them. So a company like that, it might be a good candidate for export, on a smaller scale, possibly. But that's something that, I think the services that are available can help assess the readiness of the business, like you said, and understanding if it makes sense really to export, or you just kind of spinning your wheels, or you're maybe not really, maybe there's not as much opportunity, or maybe you're just not going to make a lot of profit doing it. And maybe it makes more sense to stay domestic and, get a better return.
Sometimes.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of things to think about. And, there are a lot of great products going out of South Carolina and being grown here and made here and in the agricultural and food sector. And I believe that it's a big opportunity spot for sure. So with that, does anybody have any questions?
Are you guys still awake? I hope I didn't bore you. That was, but what I was trying to do was explain to you what South Carolina does do, so maybe as you listen to that, you go, oh, okay, well, I grow corn, I mean, why haven't I thought about selling it in other places other than, just my local markets? Although one of the things, Jimmy, we did learn, which I had not known until I did the work with the Department of Agriculture, Food Lion, has a corporate strategy of buying everything they possibly can locally, by store, so I thought that's pretty cool. Ron, how do I answer your question?
Well, good, Viv. Thanks for the presentation.
You're so welcome.
Let's just get back up a little bit. When I first got into farming, there were some niches that I felt that to try to do. And one is that as a small grower, it's hard to create revenue, return a product. You know, I'll give you an example, selling corn.
Mhm.
You take it to the market, or soybeans, you know, grain elevator cut you 35 or 45 cents a bushel.
Right?
What really has gotten me to me is that I would love to be able to export my corn out. Don't, you know, or take it somewhere out of the local Agristar, which is a local guy, or Smithfield, which is my local guys, out to another far away. But the challenge for me as a small guy is hauling capabilities.
Mhm.
So my only concern is, you know,
Mhm.
I turn probably 7,000 to 9,000 bushel of corn. The cost factors they're hauling that corn,
Mhm.
is it well worth
It's
it? I
real.
don't know.
Mhm.
So that would love to sit down and just have a further discussion regarding that. And the
I'd like to
second,
do that with you, and I'd like to bring some other resources to bear with that who understand. I understand the transport costs. There's no question about that. But Jimmy, it's also my understanding we have some, my word would be aggregators. So that once you get it somewhere close, I think not only the grain elevator, but they pick it up from there. This, and by the way, this has been kind of a traditional South Carolina thing when, and I'm going to use plastics recycling. Seriously, we used to have people that were picking up plastics and they might have, just go with me, like a garbage can full, just bear with, but that's not enough to send to a plastics recycling center. So back in the day, the Department of Commerce for the state of South Carolina realized that you weren't going to have Beth with her trunk full or Jimmy with a truckload full driving to Indiana to get bottles recycled, right? We weren't going to do that. So they aggregated them. They would have places where they'd have, you know, a trailer, 51-foot trailer, and everybody's stuff went in there. And then they figured out pro rata, like if I only had a garbage can full, I didn't fill very much of that 51-foot space. So we took the whole thing up. When we got the money back, it was divvied up by the weight or the space that we took up. So I got my nickel and Jimmy got $1 and maybe Ron, you got $12. You know what I'm saying? But that's what we have been doing. And maybe it's saying to us, if that's what we need to tell Commerce or South Carolina Department of Agriculture that we need, again, we need to aggregate smaller loads together so that we can ship them so that we don't lose the perishable goods quickly. And
yeah,
it
I
can
mean,
be done. What I'm
I mean,
saying is South Carolina, when they hear that, they go, oh, we just didn't know that needed to be done. We could figure that out.
you know, the challenge you got though, Beth, is that you got so many people that's in there. The easiest answer to tell somebody no. I appreciate
Right.
what you just said there, because you're taking the hard approach of how do we do it? And
Mhm.
that's one of the things when I got into farming, they wanted minorities and veterans into farming. But if you're going to hurt a minority veteran with all these overhead costs, where like I go back to that grain elevator, killing, cutting the price. If you don't farm 500 acres, I can tell you that going in. I've done the math. I've done everything. If you don't farm 500 acres, you ain't gonna make no money. I can tell you. I mean, God bless me for what I've done, so that I can afford to try to build on this. But then also I run into these other little small guys that farm, right, that are barely making ends meet. And then you know, I call them the quick dollar farmer. So every dollar they make, they got to put it back into some other sources. For me, they didn't have the capability of saving or the bill. So, but if you take 3 or 4 small farmers and merge them, what you're talking about, aggregate process there, right? Then guess
Aggregated.
what? That will allow them to be able to ship, sell, and get a better price point for their goods versus taking the lower end and which you barely make anything. So that's good. I dare say, I appreciate that, and look forward to scheduling a time to talk with you.
You bet, Ronald, because I'm saying I have watched South Carolina. There are plenty of folks that will think like that. They will go, I didn't even know it was a problem. Surely we can figure this out, because we don't want our small farmers to go under. We don't, and we get transportation costs and your volume. We understand all that. And we understand commodity prices are not really for our specialty items, right? You know,
Right.
so we get it. It's just if we put our heads together, and I seriously watched them do that in recycling, the recycling centers we have in the upstate now were not there 15 years ago. They
Right.
grew because there was a need, and driving all the way up to Illinois made no sense. You see, so we just had to go, well, let's put everybody who's got a vested interest in this on a team. Y'all figure it out, and then we'll help you. We'll figure out what we need to do to make it work.
Well, good. Well, Jim, we'll reach out. We can, I mean, I don't mind however you want to do this, Jim. We can,
Oh, always through Jim.
yeah. Well, there's two phases there with Jim, because I think that some of the agriculture program extension at South Carolina State, they talk about working with minority small farmers. We need to figure out. I'll ask that question, Jim, for you to find out who they got and try to educate them involved, because I tell you what, this could really help them out, because like I said, I know the cost. I see the cost. I mean, so thank you. Appreciate it.
Oh, and I don't know a farmer who doesn't know his costs. So that
should.
drives everything. So I know you know that. And by the way, what I do is I am in the background behind Jim. You know, I don't take his place. I'm just here with the connections I have to help sort out what we can do to help each of you. Okay.
Great question.
Questions
Yeah.
from others? You're all being too polite. You're being too nice. John, thank you for your chat note. I see it. Thank you so much. You're so welcome. And you know, Jimmy is quite genuine in providing assistance. You know, his heart's in what he does, and mine is in what I do. And I think together we could provide some assistance to you. And I may not know what the answer is today. Maybe it's a question, but we'll take it back to Commerce and try to sort through it and figure out how else we can do it.
Yeah, I think you also mentioned something that is worth repeating, Beth, in talking about commodity versus maybe high value or specialty. I think that's where you have to focus. And the challenge with, growing a high value or creating a high value product is finding a market that'll buy it. So who knows, maybe it's the export market, but it'll take a little study and a little work.
You just have to look at it.
Instead of
Blake,
500 acres of, regular, corn that'll be, exported as commodity, maybe it's, 200 acres of a very specialized corn,
Exactly.
that only certain customers want. But I know that's easier said than done, because you got to find that buyer that wants that particular corn. But that buyer might be, overseas. It might be somewhere else.
It might be.
So that's part of the concept.
And just so you know how I look at the data, we have to know the Schedule B code. I know this makes no sense to anybody, but I have to look up the code for whatever type, let's just make it up, corn you currently sell. That exact 10-digit number. And with that number, I can then go into all the international trade data. I can see who's buying it, and I can see who's buying it and where it's being shipped to. So we know that there's a ready market for it already. That's where I start. Day one, first hour, working with you.
Well, Beth, we appreciate it. We appreciate everything that you do, and bringing your expertise to the audience we have here today.
Thank you.
We thank you very much. And of course, if anyone has any questions for me or for Beth, I'll be emailing out Beth's information and my information, and eventually I will get the slides out. And this video is being recorded, so I will send out a recording of this video as well. And I also wanted to mention that the South Carolina Department of Agriculture, the ACRE program, which is a Center for Agricultural Research and Entrepreneurship, they were a promoting or marketing sponsor of this webinar, and they are a big supporter of what SBDC does, and we work together very closely with them. It's a great
group. That's a great group
in agriculture. And if you're starting out and trying to develop maybe a food product or an agricultural product that you may want to export at some point, you know, I would look at Acre too as a source of training and possible funding as well for certain entrepreneurs. So glad to have them in support and working with them. And I appreciate everyone who was able to attend today. And I hope everyone has a great, beautiful week. It looks like the weather is turning a little bit nice here. So get out and smell the flowers a little bit. You take
Jimmy,
care.
thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Thanks, and so nice to meet everybody. Let me know if I can help you through Jim, okay?
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks. See you now. Bye-bye.